So thank you all for joining us for our additional programming for the South Carolina Arts Network. I love this programming and very happy to providing the services of the experts that we have in our state. So this evening we have Miss Heather Singleton. She's born and raised in Charleston and graduated with political science degree from USC. She is also graduating with public service and corporate sectors, which focuses on training, brand strategy, project management, fundraising, the list goes on. Such a fabulous person. And she is now the principal consultant of the Strategic Public Relations Consulting. It provides support for businesses, nonprofit, and political organizations with internal and external communication needs. She is a board member of the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council, a mentor with Perfect Pearlz, and she volunteers with her church. And she finds her purpose in helping others improve their professional skills to become success. So I'm happy to present to you, and if you already know, such a wonderful professional that we have that will be sharing information with us today. Heather, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, and kudos to the Arts Commission for providing such vital programming to those who are a part of this network. It's often overlooked that everybody doesn't speak the same language as we talk about brand strategy and branding communications. And we often overlook the barriers that come with having a nonprofit, specifically some of them that may be newer, like Piedmont Music Therapy, or some that may be more grassroots. So I'm excited to be here to share some of my knowledge with you, and hopefully you'll at least have one takeaway from our conversation here together. So I am going to share my screen. And you would think after all of these years of Zoom and all the things that I would do this a little more effectively. All right, so today we are going to be speaking specifically about communications, advocacy, and fundraising, and how we bring all of that together to share your brand story. And this slide deck will be made available in PDF form afterwards to Lurshila, as well as it is being recorded for those who may want to view it at a later time. So our objectives this afternoon are to explore communications and branding best practices for arts-focused organizations, and not just arts, but specifically nonprofits, and identifying ways to advocate on behalf of your nonprofit, and then to discuss methods of fundraising that are most effective for your board service, for your employees to engage in, and other things or other customers that you may be serving, because fundraising is everybody's job. Even when it's not in your description, it's underneath the other duties as assigned that sometimes you see on your job descriptions. And we want to make sure that you feel equipped, because every time you open your mouth to speak about your nonprofit is an opportunity to engage someone and implore them to be involved in your mission. So communications, advocacy, and fundraising all play a vital role in the health and the wealth of a nonprofit. These things interlock, and while they may seem like they are diverse in their offerings, they are actually quite codependent upon each other. It's really hard to advocate for your cause if you don't know the messaging. It's really hard to fundraise if you don't have collateral that you can use to articulate your brand's message, mission, values, and story. So communications leads to the advocacy work, which leads to the fundraising, and all of these things are intertwined, and they do intertwine so beautifully. We are going to discuss each of these a little more in depth, and then I'm going to open up the floor in case there are any questions or comments that need to be made. I'm happy to address those and to even talk more about some of the hands-on issues that you may be facing in your nonprofit. So let's talk a little bit about communications and what that looks like. Whether you are a small nonprofit or you are a robust nonprofit of 40, 50 people, communication should be at the forefront. However, we find that, especially in times now where there are downsizing efforts being made and people are just looking at where they can cut their budgets, oftentimes the communications and PR focus of these things, of these organizations, are the first on the chopping block. But it's really hard for people to know your messaging and to know your story if you don't have a strong communications foundation within your organization. And then you often hear of folks who get rid of it, but then some sort of crisis or catastrophe happens and they don't have anybody in place who can share the messaging of the organization. So then they hire like a crisis management firm and they try to backtrack, and it's like, why put yourself in danger before you have to? So having a member of communications or someone who is well-versed in communications rather as a part of your team is vital. And even if you can't provide that on an internal level, there are external factors that could play a role. Whether you have somebody who is a marketer who's on your board, or someone who has graphic design experience. While these are different subsets of the communication field, these are all vital. And there are access to freelancers, to consultants, to board members who you can lean on and who can provide you with the expertise that you need for this specific subset. So a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through common systems of symbols, signs, or behaviors. That is the definition of communications. And when we think about these subsets, oftentimes people will conflate the different subsets, because if you are a marketer, then you automatically must know about public relations, right? And that's not always the same. That's not necessarily the same. While there are some people who may be well-versed in all of these pieces and all of these aspects, primarily these are different genres of communications, but they all work in concert to tell the story of the organization to their stakeholders, to all of the consumers and customers who are being served, whether that be internal or external. And they give you the opportunity to obtain collateral that's going to assist with informing others of your brand's impact. Jumping the gun a little bit, but one of the things that I've picked up in my time as a PR consultant is this notion or this thought that our brands have multi-layered impact. So if you want to bring about a solid forefront of your organization, it's going to take multiple layers. It's going to take idealizing what people see, what they hear, what they experience, and which ways you can articulate that back to the public. So the promotion of a particular product or company by means of advertising or distinctive design is what we see communications as. But one of the rhetorical or non-rhetorical questions that I'm asking is, what makes your brand stand out? And in South Carolina, we have a lot of nonprofits. We have some of the highest nonprofit numbers that we've seen, specifically in the South. And we unfortunately often see duplicated efforts. And one of the things that makes us so unique, but also serves as a detriment, is that we believe in the scarcity mindset. When in actuality, when your brand is solidified, people will come to you. And even if there is competition, because we know of the competitive nature of development and resources and all of those things, people will take your experience that you provide for them, and they will become engulfed with who you are, even if the nonprofit next door is offering the same services. So again, what makes your brand stand out? Is it the people? Is it the way that you care? Is it who you represent or who represents you? So these are things that I want you guys to just think about while you're thinking about brand strength and what makes you so strong. And again, internal and external communications is the name of the game. That is something that I personally serve, and those are services that I provide to nonprofits, because the internal piece is just as important as the external piece. How many times have you gone to support a nonprofit or support a business, and they may have a quality brand on the outside, but on the inside, when you walk in, the employees are down, or they're grumpy or disgruntled. And I use the model that is taken from Publix supermarkets. I worked for Publix for almost a decade. And one of the things that was always preached to us was, if you take care of your internal customers, your employees, they will take care of your business. So when we're looking at the strength of a brand, not just who the strength of what people see from the outside, but also from the inside. How is your brand being perpetuated from those who you're serving with side by side every day? Using your missions and values and the scope of work that you provide and offering context with those pieces, that is what's going to be the bread and butter for brand strength. Really making sure that the missions and the values and what it is that you provide to the community is perpetuated inside and out, and making sure that all of your consumers, whether they be your board members or donors or volunteers, are able to see that mission, those values, and that scope of work shine through. So the questions that are listed here: who have you impacted? How have you done it? And why you do it? If you can articulate that within 2 to 3 sentences, that is going to be your elevator speech, as we like to call it. But when I think of elevator speeches and thinking about articulating brand strength, it is so important to just have that in the back of your mind. We do this to serve these folks by doing these things. And that's more than just engaging a donor at a fundraiser. That's being in the line at the supermarket and making small talk with someone, and they ask what you do or you work with. Being able to articulate that, because we do this and we do it well, and we impact these people, because you never know who would need those services of your nonprofit, or you'll never know who that $1 million donor could be. But either way, we want to make sure that we know that we know that we know that we know what it is that we do, what we do well, how we make it happen, and why we make it happen. And such goes into telling the story of your brand. So Marketing Insider Group conducted a study, and they mentioned that brand storytelling is using a narrative to connect your brand to the customers that you serve, with a focus on linking what you stand for to the values shared by your customers. So I will love to hear anybody who wants to chime in on this, but what do your internal and external customers see or think or feel when they experience your brand? And if you want to add it in the chat, you can do that. If you want to just chime in, that's fine too. But what do people experience? How do they experience you fully?
Do you want us to just chime in, Heather?
Yeah, sure.
I'm hoping with our brand that our clients feel enthusiasm, a healthy focus, a safe space to meet them where they are. And green. I will say our logo is green. I think green just brings its own health and vitality due to Mother Nature. So not all of our instruments are green, in color, but our space and our logo with our uniforms, just trying to come across professionally, that people are ready for that creative space to be shared together.
Wonderful.
Ours is it's very serious. It's very, so some people get confused because we do work in adolescent reproductive health, but our user isn't adolescents, so they expect to see images of children and teens when our images are of adults and professionals, because that's our audience, even though our content is about adolescents. So sometimes it can be a little confusing, but it's nice and clean.
And I think to that point, when you're thinking about who you're serving, that could differ from that audience and vice versa. If you're thinking of what your brand represents and how people feel about you, people could feel different things. For instance, if you are providing a service and people who are receiving that service feel and think and see you in one light, but then those who you're working alongside, or maybe your donors or those who are donating to you with their time, they may experience something else. And so what we want to do is try to have a cohesive feeling, a cohesive brand strength, where no matter how they all feel a positive way. They all feel like your brand is the go-to. You are the resource for us. And I implore us all to just take a look and do a little bit of self-assessment to make sure that your internal and external customers are feeling the missions and values that you provide on a day-to-day basis. It's not always going to be perfect. We do understand that, you're going to have, just like in retail, you're going to have unhappy customers or people who don't feel served or don't feel valued. But we want to make sure that even in those moments, they feel your heart and they feel the values of your organization, even in misunderstanding. So Havas Media Group, about 10 years ago, conducted this study on the Meaningful Brand Index. And basically, it relates to what I like to call a compounded interest in your organization. So as we talk through this, and what it basically means people know that you are the resource. So they connect our feelings and our brands to what our consumers should be feeling about the work that we provide. For instance, if I know that I have $10,000 that I want to spend, and I already give as a volunteer to Fact Forward and volunteer my time, I already know that you are a good steward of what it is that I have in my hands. So I would rather not just volunteer with you, but I also want to donate to you. I also want to send people to you. And having these compounded feelings of security within your brand, that is going to make the difference. That's how you build those lifelong donor relationships, making sure that you set a stage for progression. So let's say you have an opportunity to have a fundraising event, and you guys want to have a fundraising event, and you take up sponsorship opportunities, and out of nowhere you get $1,000 check from somebody who's just like, I believe in your mission, I just want to give this. Or they could very well, because donors will do this, they will very well say, you know what, I just need the tax write-off, and that's fine too. Hey, if that's what you want, that works. We'll take it. We'll take the dollars. But making sure that you follow up with that donor so that you can create their own brand story as it relates to you. So if I write $1,000 check, I'm going to hope and assume that your brand and your values communicate that you want more from me than just my dollar. So you're going to invite me to the next event that you have, the next social gathering that you may have, or you would invite me to the next volunteerism activity, or even a phone call from the CEO. That is all of that working together strengthens the brand and helps to build relationship and rapport. And people will become your megaphones when the brand storytelling is set, the foundation for that brand storytelling is set. So I'll give an example. I used to work for United Way of the Midlands for 8 years, something like that, 7 or 8 years. And we had this donor who truly believed in the mission. And every time there was an opportunity to give to a specific initiative, he gave, no questions asked. And that's because he had a rapport with not only the CEO, but also he understood the mission, and he had volunteered, and he had gotten his friends engaged and involved. And when you have a positive brand experience, you're more likely to tell others, because as we see with everything from Yelp reviews to Google reviews, if somebody's having a positive experience, they're going to tell people. But also if they're having a negative experience, they're going to tell people. So you have the power to amplify your brand's mission by being the strongest brand that you can, by reaching out and having a relationship with people on a year-round basis. People used to see me come in with the white United Way bags that had the campaign materials in it, and the employees would say, "Oh, I guess it's United Way time. It's time to open our pockets." And I made it my mission throughout my tenure there to show my face more than when I needed their hand or needed something from their pockets, but really creating a trusted brand. Because when people trust you, when they feel vulnerable around you, when they feel safe and secure, even with their dollars, they're more likely to continue to give those dollars and also to call on you when they need help. So all of this plays a role into telling the story of your brand. So as we have these experiences, and I will preface in saying that one of the greatest pieces of brand storytelling, or the greatest things that can flow into it, is a volunteerism activity. So if you have those types of activities, or even if you have client stories that you would like to share, nonprofit storytelling is a great way to do that. People often see like the dollars, like they'll see the bottom line, and some people really do react positively to numbers. I am not a numbers person. Data is not my jam. I'm anecdotal. I want to hear about little Timmy, who wasn't reading on grade level, and now he is. I want to hear about Megan, the single mom of 2, who's struggling to support her children, and how your organization was able to help her rise out of poverty. Those are the facets of storytelling that really make a difference. But when you use storytelling, even changing the names to protect the innocent and sewing in some data, and I think we're going to talk about a little bit of data execution in just a few moments, but sewing some of that into that story helps to bring the full picture together. Saying that in the last year, we've served 891 homeless individuals, or those who are experiencing houselessness. That is a significant figure to weave into your story. And knowing those outcomes and knowing what those tangibles are, they can only help to benefit your story in a greater way. So nonprofit storytelling shows that we rely on the volunteers who serve with us, the donors, and our board members, and everybody else in between. It displays the effectiveness of your programming and any partnerships that you may have. This is a great way to tout different partners. For instance, the folks at Fairfield County School District Foundation, they just partnered with the Midlands Housing Trust Fund and United Way of the Midlands to create the Teacher Village, which is going to help retain teachers in rural communities by giving them rent-controlled housing as long as they're employed with the district. This is a wonderful opportunity to showcase partnership and to showcase that we are hearing of the needs and we're providing programming to help supplement that. Storytelling is also used as a way to strengthen general brand awareness. People don't know what they don't know. And one of the things that I've often thought of is that even though someone may not be able to benefit themselves from the work of the nonprofit that I represent, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a neighbor or a cousin or a friend who may be in need, and your nonprofit may be able to meet that need. And then finally, it advocates for our causes. It's a great way to showcase what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. And nonprofit storytelling is the best way to do that. So we're going to talk through what advocacy in real time looks like. And that's not just the advocacy that we see at the State House, because when people think of advocacy, they automatically go to government. And that's not always the case. While it is a substantial and crucial thing, and we know that nonprofits don't often look to the State House for some of that relief, because public support comes in many different ways. And a lot of times nonprofits are relying upon grant funding or personal relationships that they may have with individual donors, those kinds of methods. But advocacy in and of itself is basically showing support for or a recommendation of a particular cause or a policy. And it does not, again, have to be exclusive to government affairs, but it is used as a tool to recruit support for an organization. So I think about REN, that does a great job of women's rights and advocacy, and they're often at the State House. But when I think of REN, what they do goes far beyond what's at the State House, and being able to showcase the importance of policy in the making, even beyond the State House steps. And what we want is to build healthy advocacy platforms that will allow us to tell the story of why the need is so great, and marry that with the story of this is how we meet that need. Understand that your voice matters, and advocacy has been a long-standing piece of the civil rights movement, of the women's rights movement, and everything else in between. Advocacy allows us to use our voice for good so that we can talk about what that need is and help to come up with solutions. And with your nonprofit being the brand at the forefront, that allows people to be more familiar with what it is that you're providing, but also it gives them an opportunity to engage at a deeper level, not just listening to you, but also pouring money and resources and connections into your organization. Your perspective of your nonprofit's impact can either be the cheat code or the nail in the coffin. So it depends on how everyone can see you. And you're not, listen, my parents told me this a long time ago. You are not going to please everyone. And as nonprofit leaders, we have to be okay with that. We sometimes spread ourselves thin, and this is not in my notes, I'm just flowing, but sometimes we spread ourselves so thin as nonprofit leaders because we're looking to meet the need of everyone. Everyone is not your core audience. So as long as you are pleasing the target audience, those who you are serving, their families who are benefiting from this service, those who are financially backing you, not in a way where it seems like, oh, I write you a $25,000 check every year, so you have to listen to what I say. Yes, you writing a $25,000 unrestricted check means a lot, but also do your values align with our mission, our values, and our core goals? And at that point, yes, your $25,000 does add weight to the conversation. But being an advocate for your nonprofit goes far beyond the dollar. Board members are your most visible champions for your organization. So while we aim to have board members who donate at 100% participation, we also understand that board members need to use their voices and their connections, because that is what's going to help propel you forward. That's how you're going to get more board members. That's how you're going to fill more gaps in your organization. That's how you're going to meet that financial need. So your board members are your most visible champions. Anytime I'm looking to give to a nonprofit that I haven't given to before, or even those that I have recurring gifts with, I often look at who's on their board. That makes a difference to me, because your word and your weight carries a lot in this community, especially because South Carolina is such a tight community with the core nonprofits that are being served. So board members are a positive or a negative for your organization, depending on who they are and what they represent. Social media can now also be a lifeline to your advocacy work. One of the things that we have taken for granted as the nonprofit community is that we were fighting tooth and nail to not necessarily be as impactful on social media as we could have been. And then we had a global pandemic. And everybody started flocking to social media. I'm talking faith-based organizations and nonprofits, and everybody was trying to do TikToks, and it was a whole thing. But your social media can be the lifeline when it comes to your advocacy. It takes nothing for a board member or a CEO to get on social media with a video to say, hey, Piedmont Music Therapy is doing amazing work in our community. Let me tell you why I support them. As easy as that. Now, again, if you're going to use social media, allow those guidelines to be in place and make sure that people are abiding by them. We don't want board members going back and forth arguing with people in the comment sections or anything like that, because everything that you do is a method of advocacy. You're perpetuating the good, the bad, and the ugly when you are on social media. So when advocating on social media, it could be your lifeline. Something as simple as the Facebook now has the option for you to raise money for a nonprofit for your birthday. So instead of people giving you, a check for your birthday or a gift card or something like that, you can funnel those funds into whatever cause you want. So, hey, you guys, tomorrow's my 36th birthday, and I'm really hoping that you will help me in supporting the American Red Cross. And people will donate to your cause. And it's beautiful because that's advocacy in real time, and people can do it virtually, and no muss, no fuss. Also using personal stories about the work that's being done. A lot of times people say, well, I don't have a personal story. I haven't been through anything traumatic. I haven't been through any issues in my life that warrants a story. You may not have, but you may have served a client who did. You may not have, but you may have worked alongside a volunteer who did. And so we are often the mouthpieces for those who don't have a voice or those who are too shy to be that voice. But we are in a unique position as nonprofit leadership when we hear the stories and we sit with these stories, and then we can regurgitate those stories. So don't be afraid to share the impact that your organization has with those who you interact with on a regular basis. Now, I will say that there is a thin line between sharing the impact and what I call pimping the trauma, because sometimes we like to rely on traumatic experiences to tell that story. And when it comes to things like that, it's almost like you're exploiting. And we don't want that. So toe the line and make sure that you change the names to protect the innocent, but also tell the story of the program and give an example of the person. And that's how that advocacy and that's how that storytelling is going to go to the forefront. So we're talking about advocacy and who we know and how we know them and all those things. We are all connected in our communities. So this is a very simple something that I created in Publisher, because just like I don't have a heart for data, I also don't have a heart for graphic design outside of Canva. By the way, as a brand storyteller, if you are not using Canva at minimum, because I can't get Adobe, but I can definitely understand Canva, you are missing out, because it truly is a gem when it comes to designing things. But think about who you know. Think about your board members and who they may know. Maybe they know a dentist who's looking to provide services to your dental clinic. Maybe they know an heiress, a local heiress here in South Carolina who has all this money and doesn't know what to do with it. Who do you know? And it could be something as small as who their doctor is, who their lawyer is, who their neighbors are. Who do you know? And when it's time for us to do giving drives and giving campaigns, this is a vital part, because them as your board members being able to tell the story of your organization and ask people to join in supporting this work, that will help to further your mission. That will help to further the advocacy. That will help to further the funding. So ask your board members, who do you know? not even just for funding, but for resources and connections. If you're trying to get over to the State House to meet with a specific representative, who do you know and who do they know? And how can you make that soft open happen? So speaking of soft opens, let's talk about how fundraising happens. So we've talked a little bit about telling the brand story, communicating it, communicating the cause, and how exactly we can make these things happen. When you have a brand story that could be articulated in multiple ways, as long as you remember to actually make the ask, it makes the ask easier. So one of the things that I like to implore people to do is to take a look at the outcomes, take a look at the stories that they have. If you aren't archiving these, or if you aren't asking people about their experience with your organization, now is a good time to start, because these are going to be the seeds of fundraising. And whether people are articulating your brand through general brand speak and they're up at a podium and they're telling a whole crowd of people just how great you are, or if they create if you create an infographic that talks about the outcomes, these are all pieces of the storytelling puzzle, and they can help to bring fundraising to fruition. So when we are talking about fundraising, we want to make sure that we have a development plan in place. And if you don't have one, this is a good time to make one, especially because we're on the cusp of the new calendar year. So if your organization runs on calendar year, this is the perfect time. If your organization runs on the fiscal year, have no fear, it's never too early to start planning. So is there a specific goal that you're looking to accomplish? Sometimes we're looking to provide capital campaigns for our organization because we need a bigger building. Or we're looking to support a new program that we'd like to launch, or there's a special event that we are looking for sponsors for. Knowing what your goal is going to help flesh out everything that comes along with it. Context is super important, and you're going to have to be knowledgeable about the programs that you provide, what you provide, how you provide it, and how to speak about it. Proposing outcomes. If we had an extra $1 million, this is what we could make happen. And that seems beyond the realm of possibilities, but we saw that Mackenzie Scott just randomly started calling up nonprofits and giving out money. And things like that can happen. It's not beyond the realm or the scope of possibilities. Identify who will perform what duties and how the plan will be carried out. If you are the CEO, or if you are an external affairs manager, or if you are a donor relations manager, is it going to be on you to reach out to those major gifts donors who give $500 or $1,000? Is it going to be you who creates and cultivates these relationships? Is it going to be you or someone else providing thank you notes to those who have given in the past? Understanding who is going to perform what duties will help to not only prevent burnout, but to also make sure that all of the bases are covered. And if you don't have the capacity for this and you are reliant upon volunteers, this still works the same way, especially if you have a board, and a working board, no less. A working board or a group of volunteers who can write thank you notes to your donors, or to do a thank you call, like a phone bank, something along those lines. That would be a great way to show appreciation to the donors. That would be a great way to share the significant stories. Hey, Jim, because of your gift to us in the last year, we were able to help 300 kids with backpacks full of snacks for the weekends because they don't have food when they go home. Like, that's a crucial piece. Even in a one-line story, it's still a story. It's still articulating the brand. It's still articulating the mission, and it's making them feel as though they are a part of this work. Along with this, again, who's your target audience? When it comes to fundraising and sharing messaging and all of these things, you have to know who that target audience is. I like to think of Tyler Perry when I think about stuff like this, because he has caught a lot of flack in life since he's been out in the public eye, because people think that he's mocking Black women, or, you know, the elderly or the church community or whatever. But he understands that I'm not going to make everybody happy. Everybody is not my target audience. So very nicely, I say, I'm not talking to you. You're not my target. And that's okay. Now, that doesn't mean that everything needs to be so siloed so that you only speak to your target, because if that's the case, then how exactly would you get new donors? But at the end of the day, you have to know who you're talking to. And the messaging for $1 million gift may not lie in the hands of someone who is going to be giving you $25 a year because that's all that they can afford, and that's okay. Hey, that is okay. And we thank you for your gift. But in that specific conversation of a capital campaign, you're not necessarily who we're talking to. So understanding who the target audience is for each piece of the plan is going to make a difference in how you speak about the plan and how you perpetuate that plan. So I'm going to dive very briefly into methods of fundraising and how we can use storytelling in these methods. So grants. Everybody loves a good grant. Grants are free funding. They're often offered through either the government or a larger nonprofit who may want to participate in a re-granting process, and there is no donor-centric involvement required. Like, who wouldn't want a grant, right? However, grants are also time limited and they restrict your funding. They're also super competitive, and there's no guarantee that you would get a grant. And I will say that any nonprofit that relies on grants solely may be in peril, because what happens the one time that you don't get that grant? So when it comes to grants, you can tell your story through grant writing. Grants are an easy way to share data and outcomes, but it's also a great way for some anecdotal sharing. So sometimes you'll see spaces in the grant application that suggest you sharing the impact. Like, is there a personal story that sticks out to you? This is the time where that storytelling can shine. And when you're storytelling through numbers, making sure that it's a dynamic showcase. Not just, oh, we raised reading levels by 89%. Okay, well, what does that look like? What does that 89% look like? That looks like providing libraries of books for children who are struggling to read. That looks like working with the local library and the local transit systems to get kids to the libraries during the summertime. What does that look like? Paint the broader picture, because that's what's going to make you more competitive in the grant writing field. Special event fundraising, not my favorite thing. However, I understand that there are a lot of arts-based nonprofits that will watch this recording or who may be in the audience right now. Special event fundraising can include online or in-person efforts. So it makes it easy for you to share your initiative with people all across the globe by sending a direct message, email, direct messaging, email, social media. Any of those types of online efforts can be encompassed in this. Also in-person efforts. So galas and fish fries and oyster roasts and golf tournaments and all of those things. I will say that I implore folks to think outside of the box. I don't necessarily think that South Carolina could use more golf tournaments, but that's just me. But question then becomes, is the event a proper use of your manpower and time? And if you're going to have a special event fundraiser like a gala or a luncheon, how do you use that opportunity to tell the brand story? Do you have board members mixing and mingling with potential donors so that they can share their own story about your organization? Do you have a video that plays that talks about what you've been able to accomplish in the last year. What does storytelling look like even in those moments? Even something as simple as some signage on the luncheon table with a QR code that has a story specific to that table. That's a way to share the story or to get people engaged in your mission. Sponsorships used for specific funding and programming, and can be provided from individuals or companies. We often see this with your corporate giving, your $25,000 checks, your $50,000 support for the year, those kinds of things. And they're often given in exchange for publicity or marketing on behalf of the company. This is when telling the story of partnerships comes into play and talking about how the Duke Endowment does a great job of partnering with your organization to make the mission come alive. So a very unique group that comes along with the fundraising piece is the major gifts group. And major gifts are usually about $1,000 or more when it comes to fundraising. So these people are like the pillars of your organization. This is where you want to have a greater emphasis on your one-to-one fundraising, because these people are going to be your committee members. They tend to be your board members. These people have a vested interest in your organization. And if they're giving at the $1,000 level, there's a higher possibility that they will continue to give because they believe in the work. They believe in the mission. So these are also the folks you can look to for relationship mapping. Who do you know and what are their interests? Are they, do they do the same type of work that you do? These are things that you would want to ask them when you're trying to dive deeper into these relationships, because the relationships are what's going to lead to the donations. And the relationships come with the sharing of impact, the sharing of stories. And it does not have to be transactional, but really having a relationship with these major donors. So by sharing stories and developing relationships and jumping on the phone with them or meeting them for coffee, that gives you a greater understanding of who they are, and it allows you to be more strategic in your asks of them. So we talked briefly about online giving and social media fundraising. You can tell the story through posts, through reels, through videos, by going live at specific events that you may be having, or even signature events. Let's say you're doing a golf tournament and you have the chair of your board is the executive director of a large nonprofit in the area. They can jump on live with you to share their story or their why, or why it's so important that people support your mission. Using online giving is a great tool these days, especially in this era of people working remotely. It's a wonderful opportunity. We do have things like workplace campaigning. You see that a lot of times with like United Ways and American Cancer Society and those kinds of groups, especially with the customer-based fundraising, like going to the grocery store and they ask you if you want to donate to the Special Olympics. So those are the fundraising methods that are just other methods. They're not as common, but they do happen. And then, of course, planned giving. If your story, your mission, your work is so powerful that someone decides that they want to make you a part of their legacy, even once they're gone from the earth, that is what planned giving is all about. That they have such a deep and personal connection that they want that to echo generations down the line. So planned giving is another great way to share the story. If you have someone who's willing to be a planned giving donor, I would dive deeper into that story to know more about why they support you the way that they support you, because it's not just about them. It also brings into focus their families, because once they're gone on to glory, in their wills, they may have that they are going to give to the American Heart Association. Well, why? I want to know more about that, and that'll help to deepen that relationship. But also, once you have those relationships, it's easier for you to make the ask for them to even provide an endowment for you. So all in all, donor retention is necessary. Your staff, your volunteers, they all play a role, and we all have a story to tell. Again, fundraising goes hand in hand with advocacy, and goes hand in hand with communications. We all play a role in the donor retention process. New donors can grow into higher level donors. They can grow into consistent donors. They can be the people who really undergird your organization. So make sure that you're developing relationships with them, that they know of your brand, that they know of your brand on a deeper level. You'd be surprised how many folks I know, including my own best friend, by the way, when I worked at United Way, she was like, well, what is it that United Way does? And I was like, you give to United Way's campaign every year. You don't know what they do. And she plainly said, well, they told us if we give $2 a paycheck, we get to wear jeans on Fridays. So you're just giving money and you don't know. Okay. So that was an opportunity for her to learn more about United Way and to hear my United Way story and why it was such a compelling thing for me to support them. And as a result, she has gone on to continue supporting them down through the years. Authentic engagement is what's going to keep people. Having those one-on-one conversations strengthens the brand, not only your personal brand as executive directors or leadership of nonprofits, but also it strengthens the brand itself. Keep your donors engaged, keep them informed. They want to hear the stories of success. So put a client story or a volunteer story in your newsletter that you send out to your donors. Send out the annual report whenever it's time for you guys to send that out at the end of the year. Mail some out to some of your key donors because they want to see the story. They want to hear from you and make sure that they hear from you in enough time that they can make an informed decision to give again. Because nothing is worse than people not having a relationship with you, but asking you for money. And then again, use of personal touches. If you have a major donor and you have a work cell, give them your work cell number. They love to feel like they have that instant access. They love the text messages, happy birthdays, the handwritten notes, the thank you for all you do, and recognize them outside of the work they do for you because you understand and honor the full donor, not just what they bring to your table. I know I talked a lot. I know that was a lot, but what questions do you have?
Well, before we go with questions, Gretchen, if you have specific questions that are to your organization that you don't want to be recorded, I can turn the recording off and we can just use this last bit of time because I think you're the only one who's still logged in. So I'm happy to do that time with you, Heather, if that works for you.
Yes. So let me flip to this slide. If you have any questions or comments, or if there's any sort of resource that I could provide for you or be for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. My information is listed on the screen. 803-528-2975 is my work cell number. And I can also be reached via email at heather@strategicprconsulting.com. And my website is www.strategicprconsulting.com. And thank you guys so much for having me.
All right, great. Let me pause.